Hello world, it's GODZILLA with you once again. I'm here to give you guys another excellent review on Godzilla Monster Planet. So I was really curious how City on the Edge of Battle was going to play out. Overall, this film has a lot of the same issues that its predecessor had. It also gets very much caught up in this Mechagodzilla City, nanometal, GODZILLA plot. I'm trying to stay excited, but I'm already getting the feeling that, oh no, is that going to be the last 20 minutes of the movie? So we finally have come to it. Godzilla the Planet Eater, the last film in the Godzilla anime trilogy. When I first heard about this anime trilogy coming out, I wasn't sure. I'm not the biggest anime fan, and I've admitted that ever since this trilogy was announced. I'm a Godzilla fan, so I had to kind of be open-minded with this series. Now the series as a whole has had some issues. There are detractors, and some would say haters of the series. There's also fans of it. Now, if you've seen my reviews of the past two films, you generally know that I'm not the biggest fan of this series, and there have been some letdowns, definitely in the last film, City on the Edge of Battle. So as this franchise came to an end, the big question arose, was this going to be the movie that could redeem this whole series? Was it worth it after 3 films? Finally, and the fact that King Ghidorah was going to be thrown in, we'd finally get an actual monster to fight Godzilla, not just pretending that it was Mechagodzilla and that whole fiasco with City on the Edge of Battle. So there was a lot riding on this movie. I definitely felt very skeptical watching this movie for the first time. So, did the movie succeed? Did it redeem this series? Or was it all just a waste of time? Well, watch this review and you'll find out. In the first film, the main character of Haru was taken as a young child and separated from his parents as Godzilla ravaged and destroyed the world. And as the humans had to leave Earth, Haru had a constant vendetta against Godzilla. So in Godzilla Monster Planet, the humans decided to go back, only to find that Earth has been taken over by a hostile jungle and hostile creatures, and Godzilla's still running around. And Haru has one mission in mind, and that is to destroy Godzilla. They are able to find a weakness in Godzilla to penetrate essentially his shield, and they're able to puncture it and literally blow him up. Unfortunately, it turns out that wasn't the original Godzilla, it was actually its offspring. And the original Godzilla was underground and pops out, really pissed off, they destroyed its offspring, and he's also way bigger now. And of course, the whole group is left split up and scrambling to get back on their feet. In the second, more controversial film, City on the Edge of Battle, our characters are able to regroup and find out that the remnants of Mechagodzilla, the failed project that was built in a last-ditch effort to stop Godzilla, had been discovered through remnants of the nanometal. They find an entire city has been built out of the remains of Mechagodzilla. The GODZILLA, who created the Mechagodzilla, offer to use the Mechagodzilla city, as they call it now, to destroy Godzilla, essentially using the same thing they did with the first smaller Godzilla, to trap him, puncture his shield, and blow him up. Unfortunately, in order to do this, they'll have to use the nanometal, which, being intelligent and self-aware by itself, is slowly taking over everyone and will take over the whole world, and thus is almost a worse threat than Godzilla. And Haru chooses to destroy the Mechagodzilla city in favor of destroying Godzilla, leaving Godzilla in a smolten, hyper superheated state. After the events of Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, our characters now are on their last wits. Metphies, who has been guiding Haru this whole time, has now begun to show his more nefarious plans as he brings together the survivors to his religious cult and promising them salvation if they worship his god, Ghidorah, and saying that he'll save them from the dangers of Godzilla and the nanometal. And unfortunately, he's using this to summon Ghidorah to do his religious duty to have Ghidorah consume the earth. Now it's up to Haru and his friends and Godzilla to confront this threat. And that's where we are in Planet Eater. With this film, there were definitely some things that it did actually really well, better than the other films in the trilogy, but there were also some things that brought the movie's quality down a lot, and that I definitely have to call it out for. One of the best things about the film's story is the intense build-up for Ghidorah's appearance and Metfi's religious cult. And there's a great sequence where Ghidorah's energy takes over and starts killing everyone in the cult. And it's actually a really horrifying scene. It was really cool because we hadn't gotten something like that so shocking in this series, and it was really interesting. And then when Ghidorah finally shows up and he destroys the main ship through his wormholes, that whole first appearance is fantastic, and you really feel like Ghidorah is a threat. You really feel like he's very dangerous. Another great part of the story is the awesome connection with the Biluzaldo trying to use the nanometal in the last film. In this film, the ones that remain that are on the ship basically commit a mutiny because they're kind of upset that their Mechagodzilla city was destroyed by Haru's own actions. It's so nice to see that these films really connect with each other, even to the last film, perfectly. And I really appreciate good continuity. However, one of the big upsetting parts of the film, and I'm not the only one to criticize this, I've seen this on a few critical reviews, is that the actual battle between Godzilla and King Ghidorah is a huge letdown. It's just kind of Godzilla and King Ghidorah grappling for half an hour, and King Ghidorah biting Godzilla and slowly taking him up into the air. But I will say it is nice to see Godzilla actually fighting another monster, unlike one movie that you know what I'm talking about, is fighting an actual monster. It's not a city, it's an actual monster. And that was a positive, and finally something that was a threat that wasn't Godzilla. Here, Ghidorah is the actual threat, and they did that very well. And another positive was that the survivors and the tribal people are living together. If the movie ended there, it would be a great ending because it wraps everything up so perfectly. The humans left and they came back and they found a way to live in this world, finally, at peace with it. Now they can live with the tribal people who have adapted to the world and can live there. And maybe, who knows, the humans can rebuild their civilization or something like that. I don't know, it gives it a nice optimistic viewpoint to wrap this whole series up. However, these big positives here are ruined by some major plot points. The final confrontation happens not between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, but between Metfi's and Haru in Haru's own mind, because Metfi's essentially needs to use Haru to bring Ghidorah into our universe, because Ghidorah comes from his own reality through space-time. He's basically coming here through black holes, but he's actually from a different reality. And he does all this thing by saying, oh, it's okay, Ghidorah will destroy the Earth, this is fine, this is normal, there's no point in life. And this whole big confrontation, climatic event happens, all in Haru's mind, and then Haru rejects him, and Haru is basically able to break Metfi's out of his mind, and Ghidorah loses his connection to our reality, and Godzilla is able to blast him away. But it's not really because Godzilla did it, it's because Haru and Metfi's had a fight and Haru was able to break out of it. Thus, the most climatic moment of a monster movie happened in someone's brain. But really, that isn't even the most offensive part. And the movie was pretty much done. Haru is gonna have a kid with one of the fairy twins, right? It's like the whole story's wrapped up. But no, they said, you know what? Let's completely screw this whole thing up and let's have Haru and Yuko sacrifice themselves to Godzilla, because Haru thinks if he's still alive and there's still nanometal technology, Ghidorah will come back, making not only this film really feel pointless, but the entire trilogy feel pointless, because this whole thing was about Haru trying to take back Earth and defeat Godzilla, and you think, oh, maybe he's redeemed himself, maybe he's finally accepted that this is his role now, to live with the tribal people and to raise a family here and to learn to adapt to this world. And he's like, I don't want any part of it. I'm just gonna sacrifice myself in Yuko, because she still has the nanometal in her, because Ghidorah might come back because of something Metfi said in my head. And to me, that was just like a giant screw you. I'm sorry that you wasted your time watching 3 of these movies. There were different characters in this trilogy, but I think in this last film we kind of came down to the most important ones, right? Definitely some of them shined more than others. Metfi's definitely comes into his own, which I really liked because he's kind of been more of a backseat character, especially in the last film. But he's been like Haru's mentor. And they made him the villain, and I actually really like that. That was a good choice on their part. Maybe normally that would have ruined a movie like this, but that's actually one of the best parts of this movie, and his motivations for it have all been hinted at. It has been kind of hinted that there was always something nefarious about him throughout this whole series. And his religious reasons, because it is coming to, to this whole more philosophical ideas of the end of the universe and what is the point of life and reality. You could do a whole philosophical discussion on his beliefs. He believed in what he was doing, and that's what made him so interesting. He believed that this was what he needed to do. He didn't do it because he was a bad guy. He did it because this is what he believed was the best for everything. If a Ghidorah came here and consumed Earth. And that's what makes him so fascinating. That's what makes him a good villain. Also, Dr. Martin, the awesome research doctor who's been in all of these movies, dealing with the craziness. He really also came to his own and actually helped save the day because he was able to figure out where Metphies and Haru were and able to figure out a way to contact Haru so that they could break him of Metphies' control. Also thanks to the tribal twins. Unfortunately, those are characters that I have to speak a little bit more negatively about because what they did with the tribal twins in the first appearance in the last film, they were very badass and they were like, ooh, very mysterious and interesting, and you want to know more about them. But honestly, in this film, they either became like Haru's side friend or love interest, which I didn't really understand. Look, they look the same, so I can't tell which one he's into because the only difference is that their eye is pointed, like I can't tell. And one's named Mina and the other's named Mina, something like that. And they just became Haru's like love interest / friend. And it's very disappointing because there's so much more they could have done with the characters. They kind of just help Haru break from Metphies' control at the end. Haru, who's this character that we've been wanting to really like and enjoy. From the get-go, I've had my issues with Haru. I mentioned this in my review of Monster Planet, right? That he just seemed like a very generic anime hero, angry that his parents died. Sitting on the edge of battle started to develop him more. So I thought, okay, really let's bring his character forward. And I felt like finally, in Planet Eater, he'd become more developed. He'd come to accept his role, accept that Godzilla will live. Then he makes this stupid decision at the end of the movie to say, yeah, you know what, screw it all. I'm just gonna end it and Yuko because Ghidorah might come back. This whole sequence that happens in Planet Eater where like Metphies is showing him his memories of when he had to leave. Also, big plot twist that Metphies actually purposely killed Haru's grandpa so Haru would want to go to Earth. Like, Metphies planned everything. He's a crazy mofo. And all these things. And then Haru just ends it all. And thus you like feel like you just wasted 3 movies for nothing because that was the main character. Also, Ghidorah as a character was awesome. That Ghidorah, his introduction, his powers, his ability, the way he comes in through black holes, he's from a different reality, and how he basically consumes the cult members in order to come to our reality. That was really cool. His whole origin, his introduction, his powers. Another big affront this film commits is to tease Mothra as a shadow inside Haru's mind, as like a hallucination, but never actually bring her into the fight. You could have had Godzilla and Mothra team up against King Ghidorah, and you chose not to, and I will never forgive this movie for that. And they teased it. They teased it. That's the worst part. I think as for the visual effects, I've always said that these films have been pretty on par. Definitely for anime films, the visual effects are really good. This film is no exception. Ghidorah's appearance through the black holes is a really cool looking effect, and it's definitely something that wows you. That's really cool. And Haru's mind transference thing with Metphies, there's a lot of cool stuff going on, and there are a lot of cool effects. But, again, with everything else, Ghidorah's full winged form is teased several times, even in Haru's mind again, but never shown fully on screen. He's only shown in his forms coming through wormholes, even with his fight with Godzilla. To me, I would have loved to see the classic King Ghidorah with a full body, with wings and everything. And what makes it worse is that you know that they made a model. You know that they rendered it. They made a toy of Ghidorah in one full-bodied form. So they took the time and energy to design a full-bodied King Ghidorah, but not actually show him in the movie as an actual thing. Definitely though, the music stood out. For once, the music stood out to me, and there's some really creepy tunes. Music-wise, this is the best of the trilogy, in my opinion. King Ghidorah's theme is very threatening and menacing and mysterious and dangerous. I really enjoyed that. Overall, This film had quite a few things I had to critique. It did some things right, and it did some things wrong, and I can't let those slip. Overall, Godzilla Planet Eater is the best film in the Godzilla anime series, but that doesn't really mean much by the standards of this trilogy. It does have some decent action, and it has a very suspenseful plot, but this is ruined ultimately because it all comes down to this climatic moment in Haru's head. And the climatic battle between Godzilla and Ghidorah is very underwhelming. The worst offense of this film is the ending, because it robs this movie and ultimately the entire series of any point. It makes you feel like you just wasted many hours of your life watching these movies and getting invested in, especially in Haru, the main character. This film is very frustrating because it has some great moments that are just ultimately ruined by very terrible story and writing decisions. Overall, this Godzilla anime trilogy probably should have been just an anime series, because I think it would have worked a lot better, especially would have given more room for character development. We would have expected maybe a little bit less in a sense, but maybe more, and I think the strengths of this series would have been better off in a series instead of 3 movies. Hopefully the upcoming Ultraman series for Netflix will be much better off. I'm still hoping that in the future we either get a new Godzilla cartoon or animated series, like the Hanna-Barbera or the Godzilla 98, because that's what I always originally wanted. So maybe after Godzilla 2 or Godzilla vs. Kong we'll finally get that, because that's what I really wanted out of this series, and instead, well, I got something else. I just want to say that if you're a big fan of anime and you're a big fan of Godzilla, you might enjoy this series. But otherwise, honestly, there are much better anime movies and television series out there, and there are much better Godzilla movies out there. So I would say go spend your time and watch those. Don't watch these. And honestly, I'm just happy because I never have to watch or review another one of these Godzilla anime movies ever again. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. It definitely was a bit more on the wild side, getting out of my normal established zones where I film these reviews, but I wanted to do something a little different this time. And if you like this video, please like, share, comment below your thoughts on the movie. Did you like it? Do you disagree with me? Do you disagree with my opinions on the overall trilogy? Or are you in agreement? And of course, if you want to see more content, support more content mine like this, go over to my Patreon page. And hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video and the next review. Bye! I'm